Deborah Newell was about to give up on love when she met John Meehan. 2 months later, they were married. But John Meehan was not who he seemed.
This is the most devious, deceptive, dangerous personality I have ever dealt with.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, and this week on Crime Story, Los Angeles Times reporter Christopher Goffard walks me through Dirty John. Crime Story, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 6 degrees with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. The mother of a girl who was murdered in a quintuple homicide in Carmen is suing Child and Family Services. In February, the body of her 17-year-old child was found along with the bodies of her cousin and the cousin's 3 young children. Mother Juliet Hastings is accusing Child and Family Services of gross misconduct and inaction leading to her death. At the time of the homicides, her daughter, Maya Lee, was living with the cousin and her partner, Ryan Manitobans. Manitobans is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. In the statement of claim filed on Monday, Hastings says CFS ignored her pleas to have her daughter removed from the home for safety's sake. It also says CFS did not act on calls from a counselor at Carmen Collegiate who asked the agency to investigate Grattan's concerns about Manitobans, the daughter's concerns. The province says it won't comment while the matter is before the courts. Winnipeg police have arrested 3 people, including 2 boys, in connection to the murder of a teenager. On October 5th, police found a 16-year-old boy suffering from life-threatening gunshot wounds near Boyd and Andrews. He died of his injuries. Investigators identified 2 15-year-old boys and an 18-year-old man as suspects. Last Wednesday, the 2 15-year-olds were arrested along Dufferin Avenue. On Monday, Devin Allen Joseph Evans was arrested near Elgin Avenue and Isabel Street. All 3 are charged with second-degree murder. Violence on public transportation has risen in cities across the country in recent years. Lauren McCallum has your details.
The 160 public transit constables say they no longer feel safe on the job. Union President Kevin Grenier points to 2 violent incidents earlier this month. One man was stabbed and killed. In another incident, a constable was faced with a man brandishing a pellet gun. Grenier says the union hired former Sûreté du Québec Captain Mario Berniquet to look into the concerns of his members. He says the experts' report found constables don't have the equipment or tools required to protect themselves, the public, or violent suspects. The constables are trained at the Provincial Police Academy, but Grenier says they are only taught how to use batons and pepper spray. He says the constables would have to get additional training for firearms and tasers if they get the go-ahead. Grenier says the number of violent incidents in the metro spiked this year. He blames the trend on a lack of services for people with mental health issues. Lauren McCallum, CBC News, Montreal.
In Ottawa, we're hearing a warning today from the federal government's cyber watchdog. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity has released its annual assessment of cybersecurity threats to Canada.
The cyber programs of the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Iran remain the greatest strategic cyber threats to Canada.
The head of the agency, Rajiv Gupta, says nothing compares to the size and sophistication of the Chinese program, but he says newly emerging powers, such as India, are also presenting a growing threat.
We're seeing cyber and misinformation being tools of the state now. So as you get escalated tensions, cyber is one of those tools that's easy to apply.
The report also warns about the growing number of ransomware attacks, urging individuals and institutions to strengthen their defenses. Overseas, Hezbollah's newly appointed leader is promising a long and tough fight against Israel. The defiant message comes after Israel decimated the ranks of the militant group while maintaining its bombing campaign against new targets in Lebanon. Sasha Petrusik reports.
Israel's air campaign against Hezbollah militants spread from Lebanon's south to the historic city of Baalbek, much farther north. Known for its Roman temples, it's become a refuge for thousands of Lebanese fleeing Israeli attacks elsewhere. They're now fleeing again down jammed roads. The attacks are escalating, even as U.S. mediators work on a proposal for a 60-day ceasefire. Under its terms, Israel and Lebanon would have to agree to details that would keep Hezbollah unarmed and away from the Israeli border. But the new head of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, doesn't seem interested. We will continue in the path of war, he says, for days, weeks, or months. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council has strongly warned against any attempts to dismantle or diminish the operations of its Palestinian Refugee Agency. It's a rare moment of consensus for the 15-member body. The announcement is in the wake of Israel's parliament passing a law banning UNRWA from operating on Israeli soil. Israel has long claimed that agency has been infiltrated by Hamas operatives. The council expressed grave concerns about that legislation. And finally, 7 Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been named to the All-CFL team. The Canadian Football League unveiled its divisional All-CFL teams today. Members of the West Division All-Star team include running back Brady Oliveira, receiver Nick Dembski, offensive tackle Stanley Bryant, guard Liam Dobson, defensive end Willie Jefferson, cornerback Tyrell Ford, and defensive back Dietrich Nichols. The Bombers finished the regular season in first spot in the Western Division. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Looking at the forecast, mostly sunny today with a high of 6 degrees in Winnipeg. Brandon, a high of 7 with mainly sunny skies. Dauphin, a high of 6 and mainly sunny. Flin Flon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of +3. Thompson, a high around -1 and mainly cloudy today in Thompson. And on the bay in Churchill, you have a wind warning today, strong wind from the northwest, and a high around -2 degrees.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Well, coming up this hour on the show, what do you love about libraries? Coming up on our call-in conversation, we're celebrating libraries and what we love about them. That's coming up after 12:30. Also, this half hour on the show, tips on how you can make Halloween trick-or-treating more accessible to all kids living with autism. But first, here on Radio Noon, details on a new system rolling out by the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service that will change how it dispatches first responders. That's all coming up here on Radio Noon. Stay tuned. Well, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service will soon be rolling out a new way to dispatch fire paramedic first responders. And right now, the priority falls under 2 categories. Priority 1, lights and sirens, and priority 2, no lights and sirens. But it's now shifting to a 5-category system. Ryan Sneath is Deputy Chief of Paramedic Operations and Training. He spoke with the CBC's Alana Cole. She first asked how busy paramedics are on a typical day.
So on average, our utilization of our vehicles is around 68%. Industry standard is anywhere between 35 to 45%. So we're well above industry standard for our paramedics. And when I say utilization, that's times on calls. So 68% of their day they spend on calls. That's on average. In the downtown core area here, it's closer to 80% of their day is spent actually on calls. So there's not a lot of downtime for our crews. So their typical day is they get to work and they're sent on a call pretty much immediately after they start. So the bulk of the calls when they come in initially are priority 1 calls. So currently today, over 70% of the incidents that an ambulance responds to is a lights and sirens response. So something that we triage as an emergency event. We are looking to change how we triage those events, which will mean we'll do far less lights and sirens responses. But there's also a bulk of our calls that are lower acuity incidents. So over 30% of our incidents, around 30% of them are low acuity medical calls. And that's calls for stub toe, that's call for minor injuries, minor complaints.
What's the majority of the kinds of calls you guys are getting in that category?
Probably the majority is chest pain, shortness of breath, things like that. There's lots of behavioral substance abuse calls that we're responding to, and sometimes those come in as higher priority as unknown problems. So we'll see a driver by, we'll see somebody acting erratic as they're going past, and they'll end up phoning 911 for that.
Okay. And how long on average average would paramedics be spending with a substance use call, and how long would they be spending on average with a chest pain, so perhaps a heart attack or cardiac arrest?
Yeah, so it really depends. It depends on the interventions that they're providing, and depends where they're transporting those individuals. The fire paramedic service has one of the most successful STEMI programs, and that's when someone's having a heart attack in the country. And so if you're having a heart attack at home or suffering from chest pain, your response time, and because we take patients directly into the cath lab at the St. Boniface Hospital, we do not stop in the emergency department. And so those patients have their arteries opened up in a faster time than if they'd walked into the emergency department on their own. So there's those incidents that do take a little bit more time, but in terms of getting a patient to definitive care, they're better to phone 911. It's faster. There's other incidents that are low acuity that our ambulance crews end up waiting with at the hospital, or those patients end up waiting in the waiting rooms, and we can spend a fair amount of time with those just with crews tied up. Over the last number of years, we've seen about a 30% increase in our medical calls. And when you compare that to an agency that was already significantly busy, that doesn't have a significant amount of resources to respond to that, a 30% increase just means more wear and tear on your staff, more wear and tear on the vehicles and all the equipment that they're using. But most importantly, it just becomes very difficult for our staff to even attend to emergencies in a timely manner. Because of our response model, because we have paramedics on fire apparatus, we're able to get a paramedic to people who are suffering those critical emergencies in a timely manner. And that's why the big shift for the priority change is we're starting to see increased times in those categories. And so we as an agency looked at that and said we need to do something differently so that we're getting to the heart attacks, the strokes, all the things that are really time dependent in a timely manner. So we're just in the process of rolling it out. We'll likely roll it out early in the new year. So right now our call categories are priority 1, lights and sirens, or priority 2, no lights and sirens. And so we'll be shifting to a 5 priority category. So priority 1 will remain lights and sirens. Priority 2 is no lights and sirens. Priority 3 is no lights and sirens. And priority 4 is when we start to use alternative resources. So we've started staffing a paramedic, one of our community paramedics, in our dispatch center, and they do a secondary triage on all those low acuity medical calls and determine whether we actually need to send a resource to them or not. And in most circumstances, we've been running that as a pilot for the last 3 years. And they found that about 50% of the incidents we actually don't need to send an apparatus on. They're able to help them get to a clinic. They're able to help solve their issue over the phone. 5th priority is all the community paramedics. So priority 4, if we're not in a degraded mode. So degraded mode means that we only have 30% of our resources left. We will send an ambulance on that. If we're in a degraded mode, which we are 70% of the time, we're in degraded mode. That will go to the community paramedic. And then priority 5 is all community paramedics, so all of those calls will go. Early estimates, before we roll this out, is about 15,000 incidents a year will go to those community paramedics. So we recognized extending times getting to critical emergencies just because of the sheer volume of calls. And so we knew we needed to address that. We knew we needed to make sure that we had paramedics arriving at emergencies that required time-dependent care. And so that is STEMIs, that's heart attacks, that's strokes, that's the traumas. We knew we needed to get to those timely, so we had to make a shift in how we were dispatching our resources. The other reason was wellness for our staff. Our staff are responding lights and sirens to nearly 80%, is between 70 and 80% of our calls. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for our staff. That's a risk to the public with our crews going lights and sirens. So we knew we needed to reduce the number of times we were traveling lights and sirens. So there's a number of agencies that are using it across Canada. British Columbia uses something similar. Niagara EMS was one of the forerunners in Canada that was using it. When we looked across the world, NHS in the UK, they use it for their ambulance delivery. They use a 5 priority system as well. So it isn't something new, but it is something new to Winnipeg.
That was Ryan Sneath, Deputy Chief of Paramedic Operations and Training with the City of Winnipeg. He spoke with CBC's Alana Cole, and you can read more about the new 5-category priority system on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Your local news at your fingertips.
CBC News has a local news app made for your phone or tablet.
So don't waste time scrolling for the local stories you want. Just download the app to get the information that matters to you when it happens.
And how you want it.
Another way to get your local news. The CBC News app. Download it today.
You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, and still to come here on Radio Noon, what do you love about libraries? We're going to be opening up the phone lines just after 12:30 to hear your stories about why you love libraries and, maybe even what you'd like to see to make them better here in our province. Also, we got some tips on how you can make Halloween trick-or-treating more accessible to all kids living with autism. That's coming up just ahead here. But first, let's take a look at current conditions across the province. I want to start up in Churchill, where there is a wind warning in effect right now. Strong northwest winds gusting up to 90 kilometers per hour are going on right now, probably in Churchill. This afternoon, they are expected to start. And those strong winds are expected to last until this evening. They should ease kind of as the evening sets in. So just heads up there, Churchill might be quite windy where you are today. Looking elsewhere in the province, Brandon right now at the airport, sunny, 3 degrees. In Dauphin at the airport, sunny and 4 right now. 2 border towns are duking it out for the hot spot in our province right now. 7 degrees in both Emerson and Gretna. Cold spot to Dooley Lake at -8 right now. The Paw at 0. Thompson -2, mostly cloudy. And Winnipeg at the Forks, 5 degrees. Well, most kids look forward to going trick-or-treating door to door, but some kids living with autism may find heading out for Halloween overwhelming and may choose not to go at all. So how can folks make the trick-or-treat experience more inclusive? Nolan Martins is the director of Clover Creek Learning Center in Winkler, an organization that offers programming for children with autism, and I spoke with him earlier today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So kind of give us an idea how hard might it be for some kids living with autism to consider the idea of heading out and trick-or-treating?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of, the kids that we work with, we work through, routines and stuff like that. So obviously trick-or-treating, that's not something that's very routine, right? So it's usually, you're taking a chance, you're going out and, you're doing something new, right? So I think, just considering that, I think it's important that, we as a community that we do our part in trying our best to make, trick-or-treating accessible and, showing patience and being welcoming to, whoever comes your way, right?
What are the specific aspects of trick-or-treating that kids with autism find the most, potentially overwhelming?
Right. I think communication is always, something big, right? So like I was saying, doing our part and trying to, be patient and, just being aware that communication can be a struggle for some individuals. I think that goes a long way already. Flexibility, trying to be flexible for the people that you meet, in terms of, even what you're offering, right? Whether it's treats or maybe you have, other options too, like stickers, right? So I think just trying to be flexible and just being aware of some of the considerations, when it comes to, to having conversations with someone who might be on the spectrum, right? So I think it's just being aware of those things, right?
What are some of the different ways that kids living with autism might communicate, say when they come up to your door on Halloween?
Right, for sure. I think, it's important to understand that I think everybody is at a different, place in their communication journey. So communication might look very different, right? And like I said, we're just, some individuals will just be at, different places. Verbally, it can vary a lot. Some individuals may use communication tablets to help support their communication, right? So, for myself, personally, this is something that, over time you get more comfortable with and familiar with and how to support. But obviously for, the rest of the community, it might be something you're not very aware of, right? So I think, just ahead of time, just being aware that, people may communicate differently. And like I mentioned earlier, I think just having a little bit of patience and understanding and just trying our best to support, I think that goes a long way in helping that, right?
I also think about, a lot of those houses with like that just try to appeal to every sense, right? With the loud music and the flashing lights and the big daunting, skeletons on the front lawn. If you live with autism, how might that aspect of Halloween sit with some people?
Right. Like you say, I think that's something that maybe some people look forward to is decorating the front yard and having the music and sounds and lights and all that. It can be a lot of fun for some people, but I think to consider the needs of everyone, then I think it's important to consider that some lights and sounds might be sensitive to some people, right? So I think just trying to be considerate with that and trying to make trick-or-treating experience that everybody can have access to and can enjoy, right?
So in terms of the families with kids that live with autism, what do their plans look like on Halloween? Do they have to change their plans at all, or shift their plans, or go to only certain houses? What does that look like?
Right. So I think for my family personally, I have a family member who's on the spectrum. Typically we just have a gathering, right, where we get family that comes together, and then we celebrate that way, and obviously welcome people to our home when they come for trick-or-treating, right? That's something that we've done the last few years. But like you say, it might look different for everybody, where like what we've been talking about. For some families, this can be a very difficult thing to do, to go out throughout the community and to go to numerous houses, right? So I think that's something that is definitely a barrier or a challenge. But like you say, I'm sure a lot of families maybe plan their routes accordingly to to visit family and friends and that. But I think it would be awesome to see that in the future that we can continue to be considerate and to be aware and to try and make this an experience that everybody can enjoy moving forward.
Well, Nolan, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of Clover Creek Learning Center in Winkler.
Would you answer a call for a reality TV show if you weren't allowed to ask what the show was about?
If you want to be on the show, stop asking that question and get on with the auditions.
I might be selling you my kidney. I don't know what it is.
But in return, they promised you the adventure of a lifetime.
I was thinking. I didn't want to die.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers is a new 6-part series from Love and Radio, Vespucci, and CBC.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
12:22 right now on Radio Noon. I'm Corey Funk. And up next on the show, we got time for a bit of music here. Winnipeg blues singer Rami Mays took a break from releasing music in 2015. And now, with 9 years of inspiration, she shared her 7th studio album, Small Victories. It's a reminder to savor the positive moments of each and every day. And from Rami Mays, here she is with Please Tell My Heart.
You're asleep tonight, and I stayed up late, sitting and thinking about the love we made. I know not to love you, I know it's in vain. Someone please tell my heart, oh, someone sometimes worth it for a moment in time. With no reason, some things fall in line. But I know I'm not yours, and I know you're not mine. Someone please tell my heart, oh, someone please tell my heart. through. I know there's nothing for you I can do. I tell you it's alright, but you know it's not true. Someone please tell my heart I should be learning from all my mistakes, holding the feelings that led me astray. But in a moment, it washes away. Someone please tell my heart, oh, someone please tell my heart, oh, someone please tell my heart, someone please tell my heart, someone please tell my heart, someone please tell my heart.
That's Rami Mays with Please Tell My Heart. Well, 12:25 right now, and if you're a listener to Information Radio in the mornings, next Wednesday, you're going to want to tune in, especially if you're interested in what's going on down south. We're going to be live, Marcy Marcusa and I, in Fargo at, I don't know if you ever spent time in Fargo, but we're going to be live for Randy's Diner 2 just on the west end of Fargo. It's on 32nd Avenue. We actually want to know, before we head to Fargo, if you're going to be there or you know someone who lives in Fargo, please let us know. We'd love to get as many Manitobans, Canadians as we can to get their perspectives as well, who are down there, who have an interest in what's going on there, who are living what's going on down there. You could reach out to Marcy on her Facebook page. You could also email me, Corey.funk, CORY.FUNK at cbc.ca. That's Wednesday, November 6th, InfoRad live down south in Fargo. And with the U.S. election just days away, nominees Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a tight race, with both campaigns pulling out all the stops. And the New Republic's senior editor, Alex Shepard, spoke to CBC Front Burner podcast host Jamie Poisson about what's happening in these final days. And here he is talking about what could lead to a Trump loss.
Well, the biggest liability is the one that people consistently overlook, which is that he is the most unpopular figure in American politics, and voters, he's off-putting to just an enormous number of voters, and he does nothing to try to reach those people. I think, he saw a rare favorability bump that's mostly stuck around after the July assassination attempt, but that was only 4 points. He remains a kind of uniquely hated figure in politics, and he will not do anything to try to change that. And I think the Republican Party has been remade in his image. So, in 2016 and even in 2020, I think there were Republican or sort of right-leaning voters who could still be persuadable based on some of the people around him, that there were kind of, older hands that were familiar, or at least that reminded these voters that, this guy would be kept in check. And the campaign that he's run this year has been one that is completely unbridled, even by his own standards. And, the big bet that they have made going down the stretch is that, that will be appealing to a larger number of voters. And I just am not sure that that's the case at all. And I think, when I talk to people that are part of that campaign, certainly when you talk to people in the sort of crowds that are attending his rallies, you feel that, it's not really based on anything. It's just a vibe. And that kind of vibes-based approach to politics, I think, has real and pretty grave limits. And, this is by far the most extreme political campaign in modern American history.
That was the New Republic's senior editor, Alex Shepard, on Front Burner. And you can listen to the full conversation wherever you get your podcasts.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
6 degrees right now in Winnipeg, and we have reached our forecast high for the day of 6. We're going to stay there. Going to be dipping down pretty decently below zero tonight to -5. I'll have more of your forecast coming up after the news, but stay tuned because we're going to be talking libraries. We're going to be opening up the phone lines, asking the very simple question, why do you love libraries? That's coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 5 degrees with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. The mother of a girl who was murdered in a quintuple homicide in Carman is suing Child and Family Services. In February, the body of her 17-year-old child was found along with the bodies of her cousin and the cousin's 3 young children. Mother Juliet Hastings is accusing Child and Family Services of gross misconduct and inaction, leading to her death. At the time of the homicides, her daughter, Maya Lee, was living with the cousin and her partner, Ryan Manitobans. Manitobans is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. In the statement of claim filed on Monday, Hastings says CFS ignored her pleas to have her daughter removed from the home for safety's sake. It also says CFS did not act on calls from a counselor at Carman Collegiate who asked the agency to investigate Maya Lee's concerns about Manitobans. The province says it won't comment on the matter while it is before the courts. A series of flash floods have killed at least 72 people in eastern Spain.
Pánico porque he visto yo los coches.
Someone in Valencia province describing his panic as a swollen river swept away cars. He says his friends rescued a woman trapped on top of her car moments before it disappeared underwater. Severe rainstorms turned city streets into rivers and disrupted rail lines and highways. The government has sent more than 1,000 soldiers to the hardest hit areas. It's declared 3 days of national mourning in Spain. And the Lancet Medical Journal is out today with a new global report on the impact of climate change on human health. Mike Crawley has the details.
A rising number of heat wave days around the world is just one of the key findings of the report, called the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change.
It is a fundamental health crisis.
Dr. Marina Romanello is the Lancet Countdown's executive director.
We're seeing the impacts now affecting every single country.
That includes Canada, where the report shows seniors, children, anyone who works outdoors, and people with chronic illnesses, such as diabetes and heart disease, feel the health effects of extreme heat the most. Dr. Sejal Bhargava is lead author of the report's Canada section. She's a family doctor and a board member of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment.
So the health systems, we don't know how they're going to respond to the increasing severity of these weather events.
The report also shows how the health effects of climate change in turn hit the economy. For instance, a nearly 50% jump in work hours lost due to heat exposure compared with the 1990s. The bulk of that in construction. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And for news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Matt.
You're going to ask me?
About
what I like about libraries?
Well, I didn't want to put you on the spot. But
no,
sure,
always put me on the spot.
Okay, well then, Matt.
Yeah.
This just came to mind. What do you like about libraries?
Oh, what don't I like? I like being shushed.
Hey, you know what? I think that's a stereotype, Matt, and I bet you our next guest is probably actually we have her on Zoom already. We'll bring her up shortly, but I can even see her nodding.
She's nodding that it's a stereotype.
Yes. Yeah. Like she's like no. Actually, she's saying shush. No, just kidding. No, but are you a library guy? When's the last time you were at a library?
I love libraries.
Yeah.
One of the first things I did when I moved here is got my library subscription card. Thank you.
Okay.
Love libraries.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, back soon.
That is Matt Humphrey at our CBC news desk. And I'm Corey Funk, and we are about to open the phone lines to talk about libraries. But first, I do want to tell you about the weather. A couple things to keep an eye out for, especially if you are in Churchill right now. There is a wind warning in effect for Churchill. This afternoon, it's expected that winds gusting up to 90 kilometers an hour, that's northwest winds, gusting up to 90 kilometers an hour are expected to start. It should ease by Wednesday evening. But really, that's something you should be keeping an eye out for. Might want to just batten down the hatches for the afternoon and evening, because it is going to be windy out there. Here in Winnipeg, we have reached our forecast high today of 6 degrees, mainly sunny, and that's actually the story more or less right across the province today. Brandon, right now you are at 3 degrees, sunny for you, as well as in Dauphin, sunny 4 degrees. Emerson is the hot spot right now, as well as Gretna. They're tied 7 degrees right now. Sunny for you as well. We are looking at Pinawa at 6. Dooley Lake's the cold spot, -7. Thompson at the airport, you are experiencing some light snow right now, and you are at -2. And Winnipeg at the Forks, we are at 6 degrees. Well, before they turn the page on National Library Month, we want to know, why do you love libraries? What's your favorite book of all time? One you read over and over, or the book that opened your eyes or your mind? Was there a librarian in your life who helped you navigate the stacks or introduced you to an author? Does the word library conjure up maybe some good feelings? Tell us why. Maybe you visited the library as a family or found it to be a refuge from the world. And how do you feel about how libraries have evolved from silent spaces, like maybe Matt thinks they are, to community hubs, which they very much are these days? We want to hear from you. 204-780-0893. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to have you on air to talk about it. You can also text us, 204-588-7588. Once again, that number to call, though, we love hearing your voice on air, 204-780-0893. And our guest today is Kirsten Werman. She's the Manitoba Library Association's program coordinator, and the association supports libraries and librarians, and so do we. So please join the conversation as we celebrate books and libraries. Hello there, Kirsten.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too. I'm sure you want to clear up that libraries aren't places where you get where you do a lot of shushing.
That is absolutely not the case. Nobody gets shushed anymore, except for maybe I sometimes get shushed by my staff.
Oh, it's all flipped around now, the other way. I see.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So tell me what sparked your love of libraries?
Well, I think, and I've talked about this before. My mom was on CBC when we lived up in the Yukon, and she was Stories with Sharon. So there was always storytelling, but also book reading and visits to the library with my mom as she recorded this radio show. So it was just like always just something that was part of my life, and I've always just been a really big book reader. But when I became a librarian, then I actually really found out, I think, how special libraries really are.
And tell me a little bit about that. What is it about libraries that you think are so special?
Well, I mean, I guess I didn't realize, or I didn't think that deeply about how libraries are such a community building institution, and the library workers within the library really they are there to create this equal access of information, of books, of programming, of services for everybody, for all people. And that it's this place, like you were mentioning earlier about, a safe space for some, a cool place in the summer for some, a warm place in the winter, a place to bring your kids, a place to come and use the computer, a place to learn Indigenous languages. It just, it's a space that I think we need to be valuing more as a society, and I think that people are perhaps, they used to go to the library when they had kids or when they were a kid, but people would be surprised perhaps to find out just really all that a library can provide.
We've got Shane on the line here. Hello, Shane.
Hi, I've been a supporter of libraries since I was about 7 or 8, because way back then I was a hater of school, doing very poorly, and very slow reader. And a brilliant librarian took me aside and showed me some books that were so exciting for a boy that age that it changed my life. And I would also like to mention that when a book comes on for sale and you hear all about it, they're often available at the library for free. You just have to be on the list, if it's really a thing. So there's two great things in libraries: librarians that know so much about what's in the library, and the cost is negligible.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask, what are those books that made you fall in love with reading?
I cannot remember that far back. That's 70 years ago.
Okay.
I was
I imagine.
Seriously, changed my life though.
Oh.
Seriously.
Wow.
Learning to read is and enjoying reading is very, very powerful.
Well, thanks for that call there, Shane. Really appreciate it. That is.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead, Kirsten.
I was just going to say, I think that Shane kind of hits the nail on the head about how it's so important to find yourself in books and in stories. And I think sometimes that's what a library worker, a librarian can help folks do, but also just, connect you to the right book, the right level. There's so many different books out there right now, graphic novels and literature that can really help with the literacy levels of different readers, but also different topics too of interest. So
yes, we love that call, and keep those coming. Keep the calls coming. 204-780-0893 is the number to call. 204-780-0893. Maybe you have a story about a library that played an important role in your life, or maybe you have you want to tell us about a story you read at a library that played an important part in your life as well. And I'm sure we have Jerry on the line here, who I'm sure resonated a little bit with Shane's story as well. Hi there, Jerry.
Hi. I just want to say that when you're a young child, and in our family we didn't have money to buy books, so every 2 weeks my dad took us, especially in the wintertime, on the toboggan, pulled my brother and I to the Fort Garry Public Library, and there was always seemed to be the same people working there. That felt great. And I remember one book, Paddle to the Sea. And it was a wonderful book, and my dad had to read it to us, the whole thing. And now, as a senior, I really appreciate the audiobooks. I use the audiobooks, and I've just listened to a fabulous book about Leonardo da Vinci. So thanks for the public libraries.
Thank you, Jerry. I mean, it must feel good to get all this love here, Kirsten, today. And yeah, what about Jerry's story resonate with you?
Well, working, I was a branch head at Winnipeg Public Library for 11 years, so I certainly love the love and have heard it often at the service desk. But I was going to actually just mention that a lot of libraries on their websites, they have a library use calculator that you can use. I was just on the Portage La Prairie website, and they showed this calculator, and it can calculate your yearly savings. So sort of like what Shane was saying too, how much money you save by using the public library. I also was just thinking too about just all the different types of accessible formats, and how Jerry was saying that she really likes to listen to the audiobooks now, and there are lots of accessible audio kits that are now available in all rural public libraries, and I think that was actually a program that was started out of the Interlake Regional Library System. So you can get these audio kits for free, and they'll be downloaded perhaps with all westerns or all romances, and it's just a different accessible way of getting a book and getting information. There are 50 public library systems in the province, so there's lots of places to get these important materials.
We've got Edward here on the line. Hello there, Edward.
I'm a bit of an older fossil, but not quite as old as your first guest, and I remember the days, and I grew up in a rural area. One of the things that I really valued when I started school, I really desperately wanted to learn how to read, and I too am a slow reader. However, the facility that was available to us at that time was, I think it was from the University of Manitoba. We could end up ordering books from there, and they were provided to us postal free, both there and back. So in other words, our local rural school didn't have many books available, and this just absolutely expanded the books that we have access to. And the connection that I want to make with that, as a rural Manitoba, not that far from Winnipeg, we don't have a local library. However, I can't become a member of a Winnipeg library. I think we should change that policy, because we as Canadians and rural Manitobans, we certainly pay our taxes and they get into Winnipeg. So why can't we end up accessing the Winnipeg library?
Kirsten, what's your response to Edward's thoughts there?
Well, I would encourage you to talk to, I didn't catch where you were calling from, but I would encourage you to speak to your, the local council there and see if they will reimburse you for the out of town purchase of a library card, because many councils will do that, many towns will do that, but it does also really bring up the case, I think, that libraries, we need to start seeing libraries as critical infrastructure, that needs sustained funding and sustained investments, and we need to be seeing them as critical as any other infrastructure in our community, but we need the funding behind it, because libraries are being asked to do more and more and more. And I'm not even just talking about the public library system with the Manitoba Library Association, where we represent public and not school libraries, sorry, public and academic libraries, special libraries like law libraries, art libraries. So there's such a diversity of libraries in the province, and I think there needs to be that funding commitment, and we just need to, all the callers have talked about how important libraries are to their life, and I think we just need to make sure, as a society, as a community, we really start looking at it as critical infrastructure.
Keep those calls coming. Thanks for all the perspectives so far. 204-780-0893 is the number to call. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us, as it is about libraries if you prefer the written word. 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. We've got Maxine on the live, who I guess somewhat grew up in a library. Is that right, Maxine?
Yeah, well, so we were living in St. Malo, and our house, the front part of our house, was rented out by, I don't know who, but my mom had the library in our house. So, so we would have, like, I could go and sit, they had the long tables there. We would go and sit there all the time and read books. So I loved books from a small child. And, yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And sometimes, like, she would get, I guess, the National Film Board movies for the school or whatever, and we'd watch them in the house. It was a really fun thing to have, like, to be right in the library all the time.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. But I have kind of a sad part to this, is like, I really appreciate libraries, and our local library now, unfortunately, and that, like, it goes with what your librarian was talking about before. Like, we're really, really sad because our library now, we can't access the library only in the evenings, like from 4 to 8 or something like this. Now we can't go during the day to our local library.
And this is still in St. Malo?
This is in St. Pierre now.
Oh, St. Pierre. Okay. And why is that?
Well, because the building belongs to the school division, and the school division has decided that they don't want public access to the library.
Okay.
While school is in session.
Okay.
Which is really sad, because I'm kind of, I'm a senior, I guess, and I go do my stuff during the day, so now I have less access to libraries. But anyways, I love books, and I'm going to do my best.
Thank you for your call, Maxine. Really appreciate it, and for your story. I imagine, Kirsten, you must be a little jealous of someone who grew up in a library. But to the second part of Maxine's story there, I mean, we were talking a little bit about rural accessibility to libraries. I mean, what else would you like to see done? You know, clearly they have a library there, but it's for Maxine, it's not open the hours that work best for her. What would you like to see done to make them accessible all the time? Like, if funding, or what else is there to be done?
Well, I think this unfortunately is sort of a common issue right now. We just gathered together a bunch of public libraries up in Dauphin a couple weeks ago, and a big part of what we talked about was funding and grant writing and fundraisers. And so a lot of these libraries are having to really spend a lot of their time looking for funding elsewhere. And that's really time consuming. It takes a specific skill set. And so that's what a lot of the library workers were doing, trying to learn from each other a couple of weeks ago. But it's tough. And a lot of the libraries are being really, really innovative. I just noticed Carmen Library, I think they're launching their Wine Survivor fundraiser just this week, which sounds like a whole lot of fun, and I think it does raise the money. But again, the challenge, I think, is for everyone to understand, not just our library users, but our funders and the government and our town councils and the rest of the community that maybe doesn't know about the library. We need to make sure everyone understands what a library does and what a library is doing in our community right now. And it's more than just books. Actually, it's a space. It's literacy building. It's job seeking. It's creating community. And so, in order to sort of like strengthen that community resilience, there needs to be an understanding that these well-loved institutions need that financial support as well. And, that could be in terms of staffing, so that then maybe part of the staffing has to do some of these fundraising events as well, which can also be a um, community building activity too, with something like the Wine Survivor. That sounds actually very fun.
We've got Gord on the line now. Hi there, Gord.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Good. I understand you want to talk a little bit about one potential accessibility solution.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a kid, lived in a single-parent family, didn't have a lot of money, and we had what was called a mobile library. It was old travel. Well, I guess back then it would have been a travel trailer where they stripped it out, put bookshelves in, and put books out, and they would travel around the city, and it would come and be parked at, this is really dating myself again, the White Rose gas station just around the corner from where I lived. And come once a week, and I would just love it as a kid. I would be waiting for them to arrive and go in and grab my books, and then away I would go. So it was great in terms of accessibility. Actually, now in terms of accessibility, the online e-reader, I have an e-reader now, and so I can get my books, from the library website now too. So accessibility is still increased. That's my mobile book library now, is online.
Right. Oh, well, thanks for that, Gord.
Okay.
And actually, while I got you here, I mean, just got to ask, that mobile library. When we look back, is that, if it wasn't there, would you love reading like you do now?
Well, that's a good question. I think accessibility, as we've been talking about, is a huge part of, having all those books available, at my fingertip. And of course, the mobile library didn't have a huge collection, but it had just enough of what I was interested in to be able to be available to me, which made it that much easier. That's for sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Gord. We're coming close to the end, so I'd actually be curious, before I go back to you, I want to squeeze in another call here with Neil. Hi there, Neil.
Hi.
Hi. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm another of those slow readers. I grew up in a small town in southern Ontario. We had one of those old Carnegie libraries.
Okay.
The big stone ones.
Okay.
And I remember it being a refuge because, I didn't exactly grow up in a happy family. So it was a good place to go that was quiet and really kind of accepting. And it, fostered the sense that there was a world beyond what I was familiar with.
Well, thanks for that, Neil. And Kirsten, I imagine when you hear Neil's story, a little bit. How common are tales like that, in about libraries these days in particular, where they've grown so much more than just strictly places of learning?
Well, it just really, certainly in my 11 years of working in the public library, the act of relationship building has just been so important. And because we do see some of we see these people coming in every day, every week. We create relationships with them, friendships with them, and you start to get to know maybe what they would like, what they would like to read. The whole story from Neil makes me think about Richard Wagamese as well, who the Indigenous writer who talked about how really having that library space really turned him into a writer and saved his life. He was on the streets, and he would come into the library and he would just sort of start pulling books off a shelf and just start reading. And the library workers, recognizing that in him and letting him borrow it. And he just could not believe his luck in that. I was also really happy that Gord talked about the bookmobile, because I did want to mention that there is still a bookmobile in Manitoba in the Interlake Regional Library System. There's a bookmobile that goes around to 30 different stops in their area. So love a bookmobile. And there's the mobile bike library too, that Winnipeg Public Library does. So trying all these different ways to create that accessibility.
Amazing. Well, thank you to all the callers who called in. We are wrapping things up now. Really appreciate all the stories that everyone's shared. And before I let you go, Kirsten, we can't leave without asking you what your book suggestion is right now.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I was trying to think about like my favorite book, and I find that a really, really hard.
Imagine for a librarian, that's an extra hard question.
Yeah, like I have favorite authors. And I read absolutely everything that Miriam Taves ever writes. I just love her writing. It's funny, it's sad. And Katrina Vermette, of course, the Métis writer who also just came out with her new book, The Real Ones. I'm on the waiting list for that. Somebody just mentioned the waiting list, but her trilogy of The Break, The Strangers, and the Circle were really impactful to me. And Winnipeg played such a huge part of that story as well. So those would be my recommendations, I think.
Well, thank you so much, Kirsten, for joining us this afternoon and sharing your thoughts with all the listeners as well who called in.
Anytime.
That's Kirsten Werman, program coordinator with the Manitoba Library Association.
There's one in Ontario named after a shoemaker. In Pennsylvania, you can visit a chocolate-sounding one. The English have one that's soapy. And in Japan, there's a whole big city named after a compact car. From Ottawa to Port Sunlight, company towns on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Well, 12:57 right now, and we are wrapping up this edition of Radio Noon. But coming up later today, 3 to 6 is Up to Speed, and Emily Brass will be sitting in the host chair for Faith Fundal. Hello there.
Hi, Corey.
Hi. What's going on the show?
Well, who doesn't enjoy a good romance flick for the holidays? A lot of those features have been created here in Winnipeg by Hallmark. In fact, Hallmark Media is one of the leading employers for actors and others in the city's film industries, and that company's executive vice president of programming is now embroiled in a lawsuit. It alleges she repeatedly made ageist comments about leading female actors. So we're going to speak with two local actors and filmmakers who are over 50, Cindy Miskew and Kelly Hurst, and they're going to tell us what it's like and how hard it is to land roles once you reach 40.
Fascinating. Thank you, Emily. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to that. That is Emily Brass. She'll be sitting in the host chair today on Up to Speed from 3 to 6. That is a wrap for Radio Noon, the Wednesday edition. Big thank you to Marshall Hodgins, our technician. Our director is Wendy Parker. Our YouTube live stream producer is Kevin Nipatebo. And I'm Corey Funk. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting in and talking about libraries with you today. Thanks to everyone who called in. Real pleasure to hear all of your stories. And enjoy the rest of your still fairly warm above seasonal day. 6 degrees here in Winnipeg. Fairly sunny right across the province. And a wind warning still in effect for Churchill winds gusting 90 kilometers an hour or so. Coming up and stay tuned on CBC Radio 1. Have a good rest of your day.